Cartier, Rolex, Gucci, Prada, Jordan, Adidas, Bottega Veneta. At eBay, it's real or it's getting the fake out. eBay's team of luxury authenticators make sure that you never get faked over. Watches inspected by watch aficionados, sneakers checked by legit sneakerheads, handbags examined by handbag connoisseurs, and jewelry in the scopes of expert gemologists. The details inspected, the fakes rejected. Ensure your next purchase is the real deal with eBay's authenticity guarantee. Everyone deserves real. Visit ebay.com for terms.
What's the worst thing about sports? That's right, all those unnecessary breaks in play. But you can make them all better by using GrubHub. GrubHub has every food you could possibly crave, from national favorites to local spots. Order through the GrubHub app or online today at grubhub.com. And with the holidays right around the corner, GrubHub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. No dishes, just satisfied cravings all holiday season. Download the GrubHub app or visit grubhub.com today. Go for GrubHub.
This holiday, Audible invites you to listen in on some of today's most creative musicians telling their stories in their own words. Origins is an Audible Originals podcast series featuring music and memories from artists like Billie Eilish, Camilo, Doja Cat, Flying Lotus, and more. Discover what shaped their creativity and get drawn into the immersive sound design that lets you feel the experiences that inspired them. Start listening to this innovative new series at audible.com/origins.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Why, hello there. Thanks for consuming this very podcast about independent music and discussing why people care about it, why they're still involved with it, why they're creating music, and just why this whole DIY scene exists so strongly today in all of our hearts and minds and souls. Because I don't like wasting your time, straight up. I try to provide insightful discussions, interesting discussions, stuff that you will be able to learn and take away from and know this person that's creating art on a deeper level. And the person this week is someone who I frankly look up to tremendously because I think he is an incredible musician and has been a part of so many legendary bands within the indie rock, emo, whatever you want to call it, scene, the Midwest music scene, we'll call it. Mike Kinsella. He plays in American football, played in Captain Jazz, Owls, Owen, his very prolific solo project that he's been doing for many years now. I think the first time I saw Owen was, 2001, which actually we discussed at the very top of the interview because, yeah, it was a really interesting experience watching him at this particular show. But anyways, I am so excited to have Mike on the show. But what I was saying about wasting your time, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I sample a lot of different shows. And there are times in which I like to just kind of, plug in, hang out with the host, hang out with the guest, whatever. And, it's fine to have that experience occasionally. But there are times where I get frustrated when I feel like my time has been wasted, where I don't really feel like I've got any better understanding of who this person is, where I feel like it's just like hanging out for hanging out's sake. Like, clearly, we're at a point in this podcast landscape where we've got a lot of podcasts. We have a lot of interview-based podcasts, and I understand that concept in and of itself is not unique by any stretch of the imagination. But bring a little unique angle to it. Don't just shoot the crap for an hour, okay? And that's maybe my own personal, cross to bear, because I'm sure that people have listened to this particular podcast and are like, yeah, you just hang out with the person. Like, this isn't an interview, which I get. I totally understand. This is, not only is this a conversation, but hopefully this should share some insight to who the person is. But anyways, I digress. You can email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Always love to have that feedback and correspondence. Also, this is a little self-plug here, but I was on a podcast recently called Adult Education. You can find it wherever you consume podcasts on this very podcast app that you were using. So yeah, just find Adult Education. It was a really, really good interview. And that's not just because I was the subject of the interview, but I feel like he asked some insightful questions about this particular podcast, about previous discussions I had with guests, and we were able to go to a lot of interesting places, including pontificating about when the scene kind of switched into a more, mainstream commodifiable thing, like a lot of interesting points. But so yeah, find that adult education podcast feed wherever, and then, listen to the interview that I did, because I think it was a fun discussion. So shout out to that podcast in particular. But let's talk to Mike, because that's why you're here, and that's why I am here. And I love him. He hardly knows me because I've only had an hour-long discussion with him, but I love his music, and I just think he's an incredibly cool dude. So I was happy to have this chat. And you need to check out Owen, straight up. If you have only listened to American football or maybe a little Captain Jazz, you need to mess with Owen. The Avalanche was a record that came out 2 years or so ago, and I love what he does. I think he's an incredible musician. So check out Owen. If there is one thing that I want you to get out of this interview, listen to Owen. So here's Mike, and I will talk to you at the end of the episode.
Essentially who we are. Hair and clothes, the company we keep. Well, this is regrettably who we are.
I've been aware of your general presence in the independent music scene for quite some time, but I'll take you to a funny story of you on tour with Me Without You. This was probably, I don't know, 2001, 2002 or something like that. And you were playing Chain Reaction here in Southern California, where I'm located. And it was really interesting because kids were straight up disrespectful at that show while you were playing, where there was this feeling of people were just, they were just talking over you playing, which I know that is not, uncommon for people to talk over performers, but clearly, not acoustic performers or solo artists. And I remember my group of friends that were there to see you and Me Without You were like, I never felt like this, but like telling people to shut the hell up. And it was,
I remember this show specifically. I think I played only a handful of songs with my back to the audience, I just kind of I seriously set up backwards, just I literally can only play for myself. There's nothing else to play for. I also remember wandering aimlessly up and down the street that day. For whatever reason, I was just really not wanting to be on tour. So it was one of those days.
No, and I appreciate. Well, I don't appreciate that you have a memory of that because it's unfortunate that happened. But I remember, and I still to this day, I'm 40 years old and been to a lot of shows as you have, and I still can't think of a time where I had to be like in a movie theater, what are you doing? Don't talk over this. Be quiet. And but you did exude that energy of okay, if you guys don't want me here, clearly I'll just do my own thing.
I mean, that was just a survival skill I've learned. The more I stress about it, the worse it is. You know what I mean? I, in theory, get paid either way. So I would just, especially on those tours, it's well, you're going to make $50 or $100 no matter what. Just show up. I learned pretty quick, they're not here to see you. So don't necessarily take it personally, but also you don't have to just sit and you don't have to eat shit in front of people for 40 minutes. You can bow out at any moment. So.
Right. Yeah. I don't have to force them into liking me.
Yeah.
Know that
it's not going to work. Yeah. I mean, wrong crowd, wrong bill, wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the above.
And I'm going to guess, even though that experience, was, not singular in the fact that you've never experienced that again before, but was that kind of, I guess, the sort of worst case scenario of you putting yourself out there from a, solo perspective? Because clearly that's more vulnerable than, you and your friends up there goofing around. So I guess, would you call that kind of oh man, this is definitely when it's off the rails, or this is kind of well, I just know that I need to approach these scenarios with that expectation in my head.
Yeah, it's sort of, that was sort of early on, and maybe I kind of had to learn that it wasn't inherently, it wasn't instinctual I didn't necessarily have confidence to go do what I did. I was never like, oh my God, I got this great voice and I'm going to blow people out of the room. It's just like,
Right.
It's like, I'm going to play this quiet shit that I recorded, months ago. And, some rooms lent themselves better to that. And, I can list all the really, really bad shows, and that's on the list. And I stopped playing, I stopped kind of doing those shows.
Yep.
I kind of got older and was kind of like, well, I could leave for 3 weeks and play 4 good shows sporadically with, a handful of terrible shows in between, or I could just play those 4 shows and I'd have a lot more time at home and, yeah.
Right. When you were able to unlock that in your brain, that you didn't have to, like, you could pick your spots. I mean, clearly you had put in the work to be able to kind of pick your spots and know the areas that you do better in than, previous times that you've played there. But I'm sure that's a very liberating feeling to be like, yeah, I'll just do this and this will be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, the same way, like maybe in fourth or whatever, third, fourth, fifth grade, you start to like learn how to make friends and you're like, wait a minute, this guy doesn't make me feel good ever. Why do I keep hanging out with this kid? And then you realize, oh, I don't, like in kindergarten, your parents kind of tell you like, oh, you guys are best friends, because the parents want to like hang out during a play date. But yeah, you sort of like make up your own mind and control your own destiny a little bit.
Right. Yeah. There's choices in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So putting even though we were putting the spotlight in you right there, speaking about, growing up, and I know your experience being, born in Chicago, and I presume that your upbringing would kind of be sort of, I guess, quintessentially Midwestern as far as, in the suburbs, like that sort of, mom and dad in the house and that sort of scenario, or am I painting too broad of a picture there?
No, I mean, essentially, I think it would have been, or it would have seemed a lot more, like just generic suburban life. If I didn't have an older brother that sort of created an entire punk rock scene, literally in my basement. So it's at whatever age, maybe other kids sort of like just sort of settled for, this is my existence. There was like, some like burnout high school kids practicing in my basement already and starting to maybe play shows that, they were in people's backyards and they were VFW halls, but it all seemed way more exciting than like it to create seemed way more exciting than to sort of like just be a passive sort of observer. So yeah, I guess I'd credit to having just a cool older brother.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I presume like mom and dad in the house as well.
Yeah. I mean, they were both in the house. Dad drank too much and I don't know if he was awake, but
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't awake much after getting home from work. Yeah.
Right.
And after work, I mean, he already had gone to play cards and maybe golf and drink with his buddies.
Got it.
Yeah. No, I mean, just, it's pretty normal. Just like I lived on a cul-de-sac. So I just remember like all the kids on the block would just always, staying out till as late as we can, till dark, and playing games and causing like quote unquote trouble, even though it was completely harmless.
Sure, of course. Well, yeah, the general tomfoolery of children.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, same as everybody else. I mean, I guess I'm raising a couple kids in the city, and I'm slowly starting to see that maybe the trouble isn't in quotes as much. Maybe, I don't know. There just seems to be a little more opportunity for like actual shenanigans, whereas mine was just sort of like, oh my God, like, we rang somebody's doorbell or we ran through somebody's backyard, and we know they'd be mad if they knew it. Like we weren't hurting anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are the youngest of your brothers, right?
I am. Just 2 of us. Yeah.
Right. And were you that? I mean, I know that in previous interviews you've articulated, you just kind of, punishing your way into, playing with your brother and stuff like that, just being, at the top of the basement steps with your guitar, being like, hey, maybe one of these days I'll be able to join. Was that kind of always your, I guess, mode of being like, hey, brother, I want to participate in whatever you were doing? Or was that just because of you thought the music was so cool and what they were doing was cool?
It was all the above, it was just, like I said, like that was the first experience I had of sort of like seeing like, oh, you can just pick up these instruments. You don't have to go to like, I remember signing up for like, Tim took guitar lessons and I took piano lessons. I think he was in 5th grade. I was in 3rd grade, and we both lasted about 3 months, maybe, let's say. And then it was a couple of years later, it was just, then he started having friends over and they were playing music, and it was sort of like, oh, cool. Like, we didn't have to do all the bullshit. We can just be a band. Like, we can just do this without doing the parts that aren't fun. So it was nothing but attractive.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm going to kind of guess that the nature that this is maybe playing a little armchair psychologist, but you, generically speaking, sound like a pretty chill dude. Like you definitely have the vibes of us California people just being like, hey man, like just hanging out. Was that kind of always who you were, or was that did you try on different personas as you were growing up in junior high and high school and stuff like that?
I think I was always I was like super shy. Maybe chill's not the word, like, because I've also been described as obnoxious, but somehow it makes sense to be obnoxiously shy.
Okay. I
guess, yeah, I don't know. I've explained it to people that like I'm sort of like confidently not cool. Like I wasn't cool, but I also was kind of confident in some ways about it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess musically, like, I was in like the first bands were sort of loud and I was just hitting as hard as I could. And it was some sort of release of maybe, I guess, looking back, of sort of just like frustrations of maybe being shy or whatever. But yeah, I got more comfortable. And I also kind of got to a point where like less is more, sort of like music and performing and all that. Like I don't think I have like any sort of like interest in performing. So the only sort of like, instead of ramping it up and sort of like doing more on stage or something in any way, I was just sort of like, okay, how can I ramp this down and just sort of like distill it to sort of like, as small as it can get, kind of.
Sure. Yeah. You do have to kind of ebb and flow of that nature when you are figuring out that you sometimes don't need to, be the loudest or take up the most space on stage, and be like, oh yeah, sometimes, having just an amp and a guitar and not having, a drummer with 2 bass drums or whatever. It's like when you're 16 and trying to figure it out. Right.
No, that was all, it was all, I've just done this so long. I'm trying to think back of which phase, what I was thinking, like, yeah. That I had the first drum kit I ever bought was huge and stupid, and I didn't know how to play it. And then hopefully I learned how to play a little bit of it, and then I got rid of the parts I couldn't or didn't need anymore. So yeah, it's all, sure. It's the same thing. Everybody, I'm just guessing you and all of your friends were all also in high school bands. Like anybody with like any sort of like interest in this kind of shit, they did it. They picked up instruments themselves. They were in bands to varying degrees of sort of technicality or technical prowess or whatever. And it's just, dumb luck that people have heard the band that I was in high school, and then it was enabled me to sort of continue doing this. So.
Right. And it is interesting too, with the notion of all of these, physical documentations of, who you were as you were growing up musically is so interesting, because there is a real demarcation line in people following along with your being like, oh yeah, like I like Captain Jazz and Joan of Arc, but hard pass on Owls and Owen, they suck, or American football I can't stand.
Sure.
So like it's really, it's I'm sure it's interesting for you to kind of be able to, express yourself in all these different forms and have people have an opinion on, yes, I like Owen, but I hate American football or whatever.
Yeah. Those two in particular that's just sort of, I don't know what that is. Yeah. I don't blame them. Like you like what you like. I don't understand. There's no bragging rights to like in either one of those bands. So it's not like you're trying to impress anybody. I could see Captain Jazz, like, like as with Tim, the front man, like it's a different vibe and different kind of music. But I also wrote a bunch of those guitar parts. So it's sort of like in my mind, it really is part of like the same tree. But it's definitely delivered differently, and expressed differently. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah, based on your age and, like you said, your technical prowess or lack thereof. Yeah.
my lack thereof. Yep.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're like still riding that train. The idea of, kind of figuring out who you are, not only through music, and once you found that, community of, the DIY scene, and Chicago was so vibrant from that perspective. Was there any other sort of, I guess, life path and plan? Because clearly the idea of, it's like, oh man, we're gonna make it with Captain Jazz. Like that was not part of the radar. So like, did you care about school? Were you being like, oh, I'm gonna grow up and be this?
I didn't. I liked school. I guess I liked it. The further along I went, the more I liked it. I wouldn't say I put a lot of effort into it. I graduated from college. I had no aspiration to like continue on and get any sort of, master's or anything in any department. I sort of stumbled into a major, which was anthropology, and a minor in history, just because I had enough credits to, collected to declare those. I knew right when I was graduating that I was going to go right on tour. Like it wasn't like, oh, maybe now I have to, do the job hunt thing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, I guess the people the scene it was just like so influenced by like the DC scene and everybody else, like all the shows we were playing just like throughout high school and college, like it was just DIY and doing it yourself. So I didn't see an end to it, but I also didn't see like a next level to it. It was just sort of like, this is awesome. This is fun. Like can't think of anything more fun than like leaving for 7 weeks and coming back and paying your rent. Like that's amazing. Right. So, and then, at that time I was maybe starting to drink, maybe becoming a little less shy and actually meeting people and sort of enjoying it more and more.
Sure. That's, and especially too with the notion that there was no sustainability, like you were talking about. There was no roadmap. It was basically very hand to mouth. Like, what's the next opportunity? Mm-hmm. Oh, we released a 7-inch. Like, I guess we'll go on tour now.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only goal. It was just sort of coming out of maybe bands that I liked signing to major labels, and then there would be a backlash, and then they would most of them would just break up. So it was like, well, that's not a cool route. That's not good. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. And then right. At least we get to keep playing. Yeah. I mean, that was the goal.
Right.
The goal was to just do it, in 3 months, get to do it again.
Sure. And it's so interesting. I've had these conversations with friends and other people on the podcast in regards to the concept of, selling out. Like it just obviously doesn't exist anymore. Like the goal is to get a song in a commercial, whereas that was obviously toxic in the early to mid 90s. Like you just couldn't do that.
Right. I mean, yeah. But then you could all of a sudden, like,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, now bands like specifically write for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, oh, yeah. Like,
I mean, and also
that's what we got.
There's not even, not only are they doing that, but there's like nobody cares and everybody expects it. And it's sort of honestly, the only way to sort of make money doing this now. So,
yep, absolutely. For sure. And I'm going to guess, I mean, like you said, your intro to independent music was definitely, through your older brother and, kind of the DC stuff that was coming out of Discord and everything like that. Was it, what kind of attracted you to it? Because I mean, since you were so young, like 11, 12 years old, and arguably at that point, usually you're just kind of, absorbing stuff that's either on the radio or, passed down via your parents. What kind of attracted you to, Fugazi and the like, to be able to, not like you could articulate at that age, but like looking back, what attracted you?
Yeah. I mean, it started as sort of maybe just the aggression, I guess, like I said, like sort of like, I was sort of I was like a little metalhead sort of. So I was into that, some sort of louder, aggressive stuff anyways. And then the sort of DIY punk ethos became attractive just because it really like, it was everything that would benefit everything we wanted to do, like, oh, cool. Like they set up their own shows. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to a bar or something. You just like find a space and you pay them a little bit of money and then you, collect a little bit of money, and then it was It's just everything we wanted. Put your own records out. You know what I mean? Like I said, like you didn't have to. I think there's like, you know, you'd be like insecure about maybe not being good enough at your instruments. And then you're like, hold on, if we just put it ourselves, nobody can tell us we're good or bad. It's just like, this is our record. This is what we want to do. So
yeah, just the autonomy. Because it is refreshing when you have, because especially at that age, you don't have any authority, nor do you have a lot of control. Like parent, you got to go to school, you got to do all these things. And for you to just like rest a little bit of that, to be like, oh yeah, we're going to, you know, put up this record to put on the show. That's like, wait, you can do that?
Oh, absolutely. And you get your friends to do it, and you're going to invite your friends from out of town. It's it's a big deal to get these, you know, this band that you've heard like a 7-inch, you've only heard 2 songs, and then you invite them and they're going to come play a whole set, and it's amazing. And yeah, it is kind of like you're in control of a thing. It's like whatever, it's sort of like what I enjoyed doing about fantasy football, but it's just like, it was real life. It was like, we're controlling our own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I can put together this team and completely stomp the competition in the same way that we can just dominate this, you know, these 10 people in the suburbs of Chicago.
Yep. And maybe we'll get to Wisconsin. How cool is that? Yeah, it was so exciting.
Yeah, totally. I'm guessing, you know, prior to Captain Jazz, like you did not play in any sort of, you know, musical projects, right? Like you were just basically dicking around in your room and at the top of the basement stairs.
Yeah. I mean, I picked up guitar trying to like just learn Tim's sort of old band, but it was the band that turned into Captain Jazz, but I was trying to learn their songs. I remember I had like a little Fostex 4-track and a Casio keyboard. I remember trying to write like Nitzareb kind of songs, like industrial stuff.
Wow. That's pretty progressive at that age too.
It was cool. I mean, I wish I had those tapes. Like, I mean, yeah, like that was a vibe. That was fun.
Sure.
And it's, you know, you record 3 tracks, then you bounce them, and then you record 2, and then you bounce it. And I liked the whole process. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really fun when you can, again, feel like you have that level of control where it's like, dude, I doubt that, you know, my friends are thinking about doing a, you know, hard industrial project at this time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had a couple friends like into the Smiths. Like it was sort of, I was definitely hanging around with Tim's friends more at that point.
Right. And from what you've articulated in the past and previous interviews and other, you know, documentations of you growing up, your parents seem pretty permissive with all of this, you know, what they probably defined as like weird stuff happening. Like, what do you mean my sons are traveling out of town to play a show and stuff like that? Was there any, I guess, reticence from them to be like, okay, guys, like you can be doing this, but you got to keep up your grades, or, you know, or was it they just liked you guys at the house playing with your band? And stuff?
I think that's part of it. I think my mom, you know, she was able to keep tabs on us.
Sure.
I think the grades thing was maybe implied, you know, like I don't remember ever having the conversation, but I think she didn't have to. We were both like pretty good students, and we weren't looking for trouble. We were just looking for sort of excitement. And we were also, I think, I don't know if I've said in interviews, like my mom baked Fugazi a cake.
Yep.
And so she brought him a cake to tell him what, you know, to thank them for being such great influences. So I think she understood like sort of the values of the scene, instead of like, you know, if we had continued into like just maybe like the metalhead scene, I think there's a different sort of I don't know. It attracts a different kind of person, I guess. I don't know. Or at least like sort of lifers, you know what I mean? Like if that was the road you're taking, I think that she'd be a little more hesitant to like embrace it and sort of encourage it. But I think she saw like, okay, well, it's just making them, you know, focus on a thing and put effort into a thing. And I think there's value in kids having some sort of success. So she was happy to see it sort of work, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty incredible of her to be able to not only recognize that, but feel compelled enough to stoke that fire and then also literally at the same time bake a cake for Fugazi. Like that's usually, you know, parents stop at a certain point, but you know, your mom sounds a little extra in the best way possible.
Yeah, no, really amazing. Like, you know, obviously nobody would be there without their mom,
Totally.
literally. But like, yeah, she never, you know, my dad was never, he definitely could have put a kibosh on shit and been like, I'm trying to sleep on this couch at 6
Right,
p.m.
knock it off.
Yeah, and quit playing the drums. But, it was just sort of, I think he just sort of, to his credit, rolled his eyes hard enough where he just passed out. So that was good.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, whatever. As long as they're out of my hair, that's totally
Sure. Yeah.
Besides records, can you tell me the most important thing in independent music? Merchandise, right? Like, let's be honest. That is the life's blood for so many bands that tour. Like, yes, guarantees and all of those other things are important. Selling music is important. But really, what gets bands from point A to point B is merchandise. And Rockabilia.com is the place where you should go to buy all of your band merch when you are sitting at home looking to score that cool shirt or sweatshirt or long sleeve, whatever it is. Rockabilia has it. And you can use this promo code 100 words or less that gets you 10% off your order. That's the same thing as walking up to a band after a show and then being like, you know what? I'm going to charge you $2 less. Here's that shirt. Great company. It's all officially licensed. The bands get paid. They make money off this. It's a great thing that you will be able to get out of this. Not only do you get great merch, but then it gets shipped directly to your door. You don't even have to go to a show because, let's be honest, shows, there's a lot less now than there was, a couple years ago. People are still feeling out the world as it stands, but Rockabilia will handle all of that for you. Again, 10% off your order, 100 words or less, rockabilia.com. Have fun going on their website and finding yourself some new merch. Let me solve all of your holiday shopping problems right now by talking to you about the premium audio products from Raycon. They have wireless earbuds, headphones, and speakers that offer premium sound. I personally adore the wireless earbuds. I've been using them for 4 or 5 years. They got a ton of battery life. We're talking 54 plus hours. It's incredible. And honestly, I have gotten them for gifts for my significant other. I've gotten them for my family and friends, and they all come back to me and they're like, dude, this is incredible. Why have I never used these before? And I'm like, I don't know. That's your fault. That's why I am here to help you. And for the next month, Raycon will have a countdown to Christmas with a new pop-up flash deal for you to take advantage of every single day. Now, what can you do? You can go to buyraycon.com/Ray and get the best deals around. That gets you 15% off site-wide with code HOLIDAY plus free shipping. That is code HOLIDAY at buyraycon.com/Ray for 15% off your Raycon purchase and then free shipping. So again, go to buyraycon.com/Ray, solve all of your shopping problems, and then maybe, toss a pair of headphones there for you. Okay? Maybe just an idea, but thank you, Raycon, and buy them now.
If you're hearing this song on your phone, in your car, or in aisle 7 of the grocery store, you're not really hearing it. You're not really hearing the hypnotic disco synth as clearly as you could. You're not really feeling the bass line in your chest. And you're certainly not hearing a century of sound innovation. The only way to hear this song the way the artist intended is to hear it on a Denton home speaker. A speaker built with as much craft, dedication, and precision as the music it plays. Which means you won't just hear the song, you'll feel it. Denton home wireless speakers, crafted by the sound obsessed, for the sound obsessed.
As you started to kind of, get your feet wet in regards to playing out and, touring a little bit and playing outside of your city, did you immediately take to touring, or was that something you had to, I guess, learn to enjoy and learn how to get enjoyment from it?
Yeah, I think it was the same thing, like kind of learned it. I always enjoyed sort of just doing something new, that excited me. I took some getting used to like being stuck in a van with like 4 other dudes that are smoking cigarettes for like 6 hours a day. Like I was like, oh, maybe this sucks. Maybe I made terrible life decisions that led me here. Then slowly, you get used to it, or people start rolling the windows down after a while. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's like little things like just sleeping on people's floors. It was romantic for a while until I kind of got older, and then it was painful.
Right.
Playing mostly empty rooms, it was just fine for a while. And then, like I said, you learn how to not do that. So it's, you sort of learn how to do it. Excuse me, you learn how to do it better. But I was always attracted to it. I just played the first shows I played, 18 months last week. And I'm kind of just riding high on just like renting a car and just driving, on a highway by myself. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, right. Yeah, I don't know. I missed it. Like little things that I'm just like, I can pull over wherever I want and pee. Like there's nothing, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
The world is my oyster.
The world is my toilet. Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. I can stop at any truck stop I want to, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So as you started to, be able to have some level of sustainability where you were talking about, you would return home from tour and be like, oh, cool. I can pay my rent and stuff like that. And like you said, after you graduated college, you immediately just went on tour. Was it always one of those things where you were basically kind of building your life around, the bands that you were doing in regards to just having, I'm going to work at a bagel shop and then I'll quit and then I'll come home and deliver pizzas or whatever. Was that kind of how you were structuring your life as you were, getting more immersed in that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but all through my 20s was just, it's all I had to do. And it was nothing but fun. And, even the bad tours were just fun. Like it wasn't, there was no gravity to it, or not gravity. I guess there was no consequence. It was just like, oh, that was a waste of 3 weeks. Okay. I can't wait to do it again in 3 weeks. Eventually I met a girl and, getting married, and then she sort of had a job lined up. So it was just understood. Like it just seemed like it seemed like the best part-time job ever. Like even like after having kids for a while, I was sort of like, okay, I'm basically home with the kids, can leave when I want, make a little bit of money, and also like, be as, it's like a creative outlet that I sort of, eventually learned that I need less than want. So yeah, it was always, and there was, I'm trying to think like, there was definitely times where I'm like, man, fuck this. I need to get a real job. I've had, real jobs or real part-time jobs. And the sort of goal is to not have to do that, but we'll see. It's always sort of like, I don't know, if nobody comes to the shows and nobody buys the records, then I'm not going to kind of like move to Nashville and be like, okay, take one last shot at this. And like, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, if what I do doesn't work, then I got to figure out something else to do. Yeah.
Right. If the appetite isn't there, it's not like, okay, my only shot is to be the songwriter, du jour or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'm not, I told you, I don't have like, I'm not going to sell anything to anybody. I'm going to turn around and play backwards,
Right. Totally. Yeah. You're not going to be performative. I'll just put it out there and then hopefully you'll buy it. And if not, then, we'll move right along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something that I find, and I'm sure that once the resurgence of American football in regards to like, wait, why is this thing popular on Tumblr? Like why, like there's so many things that still to this day, I just find so incredibly odd and entertaining, and not in a bad way, just in a like, how did this thing that you guys obviously put a lot of care and effort into recording the music and putting it out there, but not to the extent where it's just like, oh, cool. Yeah, we'll sell, 3 nights of 10,000 people. Like just how big it got, and how, was it, and this may be too big of a question, but just like, was it overwhelming as the I guess machine started to roll, where it's like, oh yeah, we will play, we will play Lollapalooza or whatever. Like we will take these opportunities where it's like, you would have told us 15 years ago and you'd be like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, like we wouldn't have believed it until it happened. Like right. Still, like it's still, I mean, we still don't believe it. Like we're not like a real band, and we don't really have any sort of like, the people who like it, but it's like, my mom could be telling her friends about me and I'm in a band and like nobody's heard of it. And if they heard it on a TV show, it would just go right past them. Like, it's not like an immediate sort of like, there's no like, what's the word I'm looking for, I guess. It seems like it's still not a real band. You know what I mean? Just because we took so much time off, like we were, even we wrote 2 more albums, and, in the studio we're a real band. When we're like at band practice, we're a real band. But as soon as we kind of get back from a leg of tours, just everybody dives so hard into their lives that I just feel like other bands would be like sort of full time. Like, I mean, I know all these other bands that sort of pursued it in a way where like they have a practice schedule that they stick to, and they have like 2 years of their life mapped out, and they know the whole next album cycle. And this still seems sort of like accidental, I guess. I don't know.
Sure. Well, just that idea that American football exists outside of the confines of your trappings of the music industry. It's like you guys can work with polyvinyl and put out a record whenever you feel like it. And now it's at this comfortable level where it's like you guys can plug in and be as active as you want to with it without having any sort of pressure to be, playing 300 shows a year or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing but desirable, but it's also, I think we all understand that there's the risk of sort of falling off the radar, or, it's just everything happens so fast now. Like we're just between the, album 2 and 3, we're kind of like, should we even do like a proper album? Like we could release it, and then like a week later, there's like the whole world changes in a week. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's sort of like, well, I don't know, is there a point to this? Like, should we just put out one song like once a month for the rest of our lives? Like, is that how you stay relevant? I don't know. I mean, we didn't obviously stress too much about it and or make the correct choice, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sure, like, as you were put into these opportunities and as you guys were pursuing these opportunities that had never been afforded to you in the past, did you, I mean, I know you're a pretty self-deprecating dude to begin with, where you're not going to buy into the ego of being like, oh, well, obviously I'm Mike Kinsella, so, you need to pay attention to me. But was there any of that, I guess, concern that all of a sudden people started to look at you differently because like, oh, wow, like, here's Mike, legendary American football musician. And you're like, well, hold on. Like, let's calm down.
No, geez, I hope not. I don't know. My ex-wife would probably say, yeah, I don't know. Like,
Sure.
And I guess my ex-drummer would say yes, but even I'm still like I said, like, I'm not, it still seems like I still don't put any value on it. Like I don't put more value on it because more people, like it, or more people like the Instagram account or whatever. Like it's just sort of like, how much do I think, how good are these songs we made? And, are they being appreciated for like what they are fairly is what I'm sort of into.
Right. And playing some of those huge shows, like when you first started to go out there, was it, I guess what was the most surprising as you started to engage with these audiences that it's like, oh, wow, I have to play to the back of the room as opposed to the 10 people are in there in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, that part I got used to, like sort of to see many people into it is sort of like, that part is fun. Conversely, there's potential to have like a much larger room of people that are not into it, which is kind of funny. Like the joke for at American football shows is like the whole front row is like a bunch of really bored and tired looking girls, like girlfriends with their boyfriends, like air drumming and air guitaring right behind them. So, that it's
just losing it. Right?
Yeah. They're just like, they know every little accent of like every little symbol and everything. And then, the girlfriend's like yawning and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously it's fun to be in a band that people like and more people like. But I'm also kind of like, I really like that. It was pretty much no doing on our part. You know what I mean? It's just like, there wasn't like any, I guess, I don't know if it's because I'm lazy or proud or whatever, but like there wasn't any effort on our part. So
right.
It just fell into our laps, and it's like, oh, cool. Like the work we put into the music 15 years ago is now paying off. But
Right. Yeah. You hate to use the word organic because that sounds like such a cliche, but it's very true in this application.
I mean, it is kind of right. And by organic, I mean like it took a ton of super like fortuitous events to occur, like the internet, like I don't know, memes existing, like all this shit, and it's like, oh, cool, that worked really in my benefit, but.
If you're hearing this song on your phone, in your car, or in aisle 7 of the grocery store, you're not really hearing it. You're not really hearing the hypnotic disco synth as clearly as you could. You're not really feeling the bass line in your chest. And you're certainly not hearing a century of sound innovation. The only way to hear this song the way the artist intended is to hear it on a Denton home speaker. A speaker built with as much craft, dedication, and precision as the music it plays. Which means you won't just hear the song, you'll feel it. Denton home wireless speakers, crafted by the sound obsessed, for the sound obsessed.
America is obsessed with true crime stories. Everywhere you go, you hear people talking about their favorite true crime podcasts. And all that excitement has made you a little crime curious. But with so many true crime podcasts to choose from, the real mystery is, where do you start? iHeartPodcasts has cracked the case. They created iHeart True Crime Plus, your source for the best true crime podcasts, all in one channel. iHeart True Crime Plus brings you the best of true crime, with shows that cover everything from unsolved murders and missing persons to heists, organized crime, and everything in between. So you're sure to find something you'll want to binge and share. And as an iHeart True Crime Plus subscriber, you'll also enjoy ad-free listening, early access to select episodes, and exclusive never-before-heard bonus content. Feed your true crime obsession. Subscribe to iHeart True Crime Plus today, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
Right, totally. Especially too, when people aren't even connecting the thing that exists on the internet with a band. There's like just the image, and it's like, wow, okay, I guess that, I mean, clearly the house is famous and obviously people use that as a tourist destination, but it's like, I guess, when did you personally notice that there was that sort of, feedback on the internet where it's like, oh, wow, like this image or this, song is like devoid from context. Like people are just consuming it for a, piece of media, and that's fine because clearly like that's not your choice. Once you put the art out of the world, it's not yours. But when did you notice that kind of boomerang?
I mean, I think like actual fans or like, people who like already sort of followed me and liked what I do, they just started tagging me in every one of them when it first started happening. And then it just became a snowball of like, like now the people using that image or the song, I don't think even know where it came. I think they just think they're referencing other memes, which is, that's like, that's exactly like a mirrored, that's what happened with society in general. You know what I mean? Like nobody knows the original origin of anything. It's just like a reference of a reference of a reference. Which is why all these like 90s sounding bands are popular. It's like, sounds like 90s, but there's irony in it. And then it's like, man, you should see how earnest like all these grunge bands were back in the day. Like there was no irony. Like they were fucking living it.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the meme thing, right? It's just, yeah. I'm still not convinced if I'm being made fun of or if it's just, I don't spend time thinking about it, but I'm not like, it's not like a thing like I'm trying to play up, and it's also not a thing I'm trying to squash in any way either. It just sort of exists in a world that's beyond my 44-year-old brain.
Right. Of course. Well, and it's that notion too, where it's, people that are, I guess, treading water musically and are just trying to recreate the thing that, made them popular in whatever music scene. Like clearly that is not the world that you live in, where it's just like, oh yeah, so like we're going to do part 7 of the first self-titled EP,
Right.
or it's like that's just not your beat.
No. I mean, it's not. It can't be. I'm an old man and I got life.
Yeah, you're like I can't put myself in that space anymore.
Yeah.
That's not good. And because like you have mentioned previously, where you've been able to balance the idea of touring and being active in the touring music scene more deliberately. I guess when did you kind of come to that realization? Was it after you had been doing Owen for a while, or what sort of things I guess opened itself up for you to be able to be more, I don't want to use the word picky, but be more selective in your opportunities?
I just kind of did the math and it didn't matter. Like I said, like I was whatever stage I was at with with the rooms I'm playing in the draw and the cities I'm playing. I was just like, it's a wash. Like I can leave for 5 days and just play like major cities on the East Coast, or I can play 4 shows on the way there and then loop around up through Canada and play 4 shows on the way back and make the same amount of money or lose money actually. So I'm like, okay, what if I just flew there? And what if it was just it just worked out where I was sort of able to do it, I guess it was just logic is what happened. Right. Yeah.
The practicalities.
Yeah.
I get that.
And then like people, I'll still get announce a tour and people are like, oh, you're not coming to Mobile, Alabama. I'm like, well, no, I can't. I gotta, I'm generally a stay-at-home dad, and then I can go, I'll play around you. I'm not like, right. I'm just not going to circle the entire country. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 3 times in a year, you're going to get me. It's like, no, that's not sustainable. And kind of along that same tip, the business implications, always kind of come into a band, even if it's small, where it's just like, oh, how much should we charge for our t-shirts? And like, once you start to exchange that and start to understand like, oh, we're getting paid $50 for a show. Did you have the proclivity to like, I guess, enjoy that aspect of it? Or has the business side of music always been a little daunting, or like, well, I got to do it, but I'd rather not think about that.
I guess this past week, I said I played some shows for the first time in 18 months.
Yep.
The first show I left all my merch at the venue. Like I drove to the hotel, just forgot it existed. They called, they're like, are we supposed to send this somewhere? I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to grab that, aren't I? So I drove back to the venue.
Yep.
Second show, I left without settling or getting paid or anything. So I woke up the next day like, oh man, I forgot to get paid for that show. Yeah, I'm terrible at it. Like, it's not even, it doesn't, I guess, part of it is I'm just stupid. And part of it is when I'm traveling with American football, like somebody's sort of dealing with it. And part of it is I'm out of practice for not doing it for a couple of years at all. But, yeah, I don't really enjoy that part of it. It's not, yeah, I guess I got bandmates and stuff that are like really into like all the liner notes and into like the price points for the merch and all this stuff. And it's just that's not where I'm coming from.
Right. Well, I mean, there are roles for individual band members.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. That's not my role, but it's nothing but helpful, and it's nothing but like a great, cog in the wheel,
Well, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I appreciate you articulating your 2 mistakes, because I do think that sums up your experience perfectly. Like, oh yeah, well, I forgot the
I mean, I'm kind of kicking myself, but also it's all fine. Like I knew it would be fine, but yeah, right. This would be different. Like back in the day, like if you left, the house was in somebody's basement and there was no internet. And so you just like, you relied on maps to get there. And then if you left and headed to the next city, you're like, oh shit, I didn't grab my money. But now it's like, I make a couple emails, couple calls. It's all good. So.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's much, much more difficult when you're just like, wait, are they going to use that for tomorrow's vegan potluck?
Right.
Like,
right.
Clean that up. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, at least pay it forward, I guess.
Right, exactly. It looks like everyone's going to have Owls merch for the next 6 months in that city. a couple last things I want to hit on was and this kind of goes back to the, sort of self-deprecating nature of yourself and the way that, you present yourself sort of publicly, on Instagram and other social media outlets, where I find it's interesting when, certain people get put into a status of like, oh, like Mike Kinsella, like clearly a legendary, emo performer and a founder of Midwest emo. And I know that clearly you don't like buy into that. You're like, well, yes, I was a part of it. I wasn't the sole driving force behind this. But I'm guessing that, after having that thought articulated to you over time, you've been able to sort of, I guess wrap your own head around the role that you played within that. And I'm guessing that you're probably just you feel lucky to have been kind of in the time and place scenario rather than look back at that and be like, oh, I'm just going to joke this away and it's not that important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like that's what, yes, I absolutely feel lucky. Like I said, like everybody was in a band in high school for whatever reason, right time, place, internet, cool labels. I understand. Like I am totally aware of Tim's sort of unique voice, sort of maybe struck a chord that sort of like to this day sort of speaks to like adolescent kids, sort of like wanting to scream. I'm speaking of Captain Jazz. Obviously, there are albums like Victor's totally unique bonkers guitar style. All these things like resonate with people. I was happy to facilitate all that, and it worked out. I just know everything I was trying to like copy and reference. So there's no way I originate anything. I mean, I understand like everything everybody does is through their own filter, but like, I know which part of whatever American football song I was just trying to make it sound like Cocteau Twins. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is it. This just sounds like Cocteau Twins. And then once I put my voice on it and other, the other dudes in the bands put their voice on it, it doesn't sound like that anymore. But, I guess I know how little, I guess what's the word, like innovation was involved. It was all just me trying to do shit that I thought was cool. So, I mean, somebody else must have done cool shit first. So,
right. True. I mean, everybody's standing on the shoulders of giants. And I think that there is that implication where it's like, okay, I just decided to rip off these 5 artists from, maybe different music genres. And that, goes into a subpar blender that shoots out a C-rate version of it. But like, well, hey, if that is influential for you, then I'm in.
Well, that's what I mean. It's nothing but cool. And also like, I'll take credit for, if in my mind, if I'm like, oh my God, I really did it. I made this part sound like Elliott Smith through a My Bloody Valentine filter with Swerve Driver drums. You know what I mean? Like if I accomplish it, then I'm like, fuck, I did it. I'm like, I'm nothing but stoked, and I'll take credit for like trying to do that. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's like fantasy football shit. I felt like, okay, cool. I had the vision and now it got executed. That's great. But, it's, so somebody else is going to they're going to be like, oh, this sounds like American football, but they're going to put it through their own filter with whatever band is current and cool. And, I guess I kind of want to mention too, like my maybe social media, like irreverence it's cause, to me, like everything should be implied. Like there was a phase where everybody would, everybody in a band after every show would thank whatever city they just played the night before. And I'm like, that's implied, man. Like, I don't know. I guess some people would, like maybe it doesn't translate to like, it's a different generation or something, but like, and I guess me not being sort of earnest about, I don't know, emo music in general, or like maybe taking like just everything so serious in general, like should be implied like, well, when I'm not making this stupid joke on the internet, I'm raising kids and I'm taking dinner very serious, and you know what I mean? So it's like, it just seems like everybody shouldn't have to state everything so like earnestly and like with such intent, like this is important, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, yeah, but like we can all understand like that's important, without having to say it, I guess, is my take on it. But other people, I think, just see it as sort of me being either an idiot or an asshole, which is maybe a problem. But
Well, it can be a problem, or obviously part of the charm that people get attracted to you. Because I see where you are coming from, and I personally agree with that notion of I am sharing who I am, stupid jokes and all or whatever, because I am proud to be able to have this, platform to share these stupid jokes.
Sure, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, like I don't want to dismiss. I think it's like dismissive. I don't know. I think it's dismissive of like, people following you to just like treat them like fans. You know what I mean? Like to treat them like, no, you like what I do, so I'm only going to play up this thing you like what I do. And I think my vision, anyways, is that it's more inclusive to like treat them like just like, I think this is funny. Like I'm a real human being. This is funny. Maybe you think it's funny, or I think this is important if it's kind of political or something. Or, I think it's giving sort of more credit to people than just being sort of like, like any tweet I make referencing Never Meant is my most popular tweet. Like when I get like, I'm like reminded like, oh shit. Okay, cool. Like these people, they're only following me because they like whatever, this band or song or whatever. And that's cool. But I'm kind of trying to like let them into my world in a way that I think is like sort of more respectful, but right. I don't know if that actually comes across or not.
Right. It's like this will clearly be on my tombstone / obituary.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but I want to push you past that and realize like, there's I am a human behind Never Meant. I don't know if you know that, but
that's the goal. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows?
Right. And the last thing I want to hit on was the, because you are a dad, and like you said, you've been so active in your kids' lives by, being there as a, quote unquote stay-at-home father. The only reason I'm putting quotes around it is because, I sometimes feel that's like pejorative, where it's like, oh, you're a stay-at-home mother. It's like, well, yeah, that's like a full-time job. I don't know.
I'm totally proud of it. Like I'm way more proud of that than, being a quote unquote musician, to be honest. Like, yeah.
Totally. You're like, I wish I could write that on my, my immigration forms. Like,
yeah.
What are you?
Home.
Yeah. Not a musician, stay at home dad. And the fact that, your kids are old enough to obviously understand, what happens when dad leaves for tour and playing music and stuff like that. Do they think that your art is totally lame, like most kids should think of their parents' art? Or are they like, are they still in that phase where it's like, oh, this is like what dad does is unconventional, based around, my friends' dads or whatever. How does that kind of like ping pong around?
I think
your house?
It's been ignored mostly. I think like, when they're little, they're kind of like bummed I was leaving.
Sure.
Then they kind of, understood it more. Maybe all of a sudden I'm finding out that we kind of reset and now they're bummed again. And it's a whole different kind of like relearning of that. They definitely don't think it's cool. Like they don't, they're into Roblox, whatever's playing in the background of Roblox and like Taylor Swift and stuff.
Sure.
I think the goal is that they'll just appreciate that, like, they get to travel a little bit with me, and they, even when they don't want to, they kind of sometimes have to. And I think eventually they'll appreciate that. And, it's a whole, this year, especially of just sort of like, or last year, I guess, of like homeschooling and everybody's around all the time and stuff. It's sort of like, it's harder than ever. Like it's a parent, you know what I mean? Like I have nothing but sympathy for the kids all day, like having to homeschool and missing their friends and missing normal life. And then to like lay the hammer down on sort of dumb shit, maybe I slacked a little bit for a year. So it's, it's like a work in progress. It's like me having to learn how to skip playing Cincinnati. No offense, Cincinnati. I have to like learn how to like, kids, I'm leaving for a while. You'll be okay. I'll see you in a week. You know what I mean? And not have it be a big deal again. So,
sure, right. It's like, yeah, getting back into the flow of it, as it were. Yeah. One last thing, because you have covered so much, musically speaking, within the context of all the different projects and all the different bands that you've played in, there has to be one thing where it's like, you know what, if I could, like, I would love to play in a hair metal band, or I would love to play in a, youth crew hardcore band. Like, is there something, I mean, not even so much that you're actually going to execute it, but if you could snap your fingers and all of a sudden it would happen, is there one sort of area that you would like to just be sort of, diving into?
I always regretted right when I played football up until high school, and then I quit. I didn't try out for the football team because I was like, oh, cool, I'm in this band now. So I guess it'd be high school football. I think I would have enjoyed it for 4 years. I don't think I would have gone further, but I think I would have enjoyed that more than, I mean, also, metal band, shoegaze band, cock rock band, all the above. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, you could, I mean, just like the great 10-yard fight combined, old school hardcore and football. You could theoretically do that for a shoegaze band if you really.
That's true. I don't have that much time with stay at home dad and shit, but
yeah, well,
too old.
You just have to. Right. You just have to wait for them to grow up a little bit, and then you can obviously enlist them for musical.
Oh yeah, the old like Jeff Tweedy, get my kid to play drums, right?
Right. Exactly. Or like, I think, John Carpenter plays with his son as well. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of different avenues you can go. So yeah, I'll invoice you after.
You're getting your cut. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike, thank you so much for hanging out. I honestly,
yeah, thanks for the interest, man.
Oh boy, that was Mr. Mike Kinsella, and thank you very much to him and his publicist Chris for connecting the dots and making this interview happen, because people are doing work for this. Like, this is a real thing. So I appreciate when people spend time with me, and hopefully they feel like they have not wasted their time, like I was talking about at the top of the show. Next week, it is a discussion with Dale Crover, who is the drummer of the Melvins. And he also at one point drummed for Nirvana, like no big deal. But Dale and I had a really fun and spirited conversation. He is an energetic dude. And for whatever reason, the internet was having a lot of problems that day. So the conversation is a little all over the place, but we were able to have a great discussion. And that is what's happening next week. Dale Crover, legendary. So many legends on this podcast. But anyways, until then, please be safe, everybody.
Finally, a podcast network that understands the assignment. The Alive Podcast Network has launched the world's first content distribution app tailored by and for podcasters and listeners of color. Subscribers will enjoy a wide variety of shows, ranging from spiritual to comedic to inspirational. Podcasters can house their content and merch in one spot and monetize from a central location. You can thank me later.
Download the Alive Podcast app for free or subscribe for $20 for 6 months to experience ad-free listening.
If you're hearing this song on your phone, in your car, or in aisle 7 of the grocery store, you're not really hearing it. You're not really hearing the hypnotic disco synth as clearly as you could. You're not really feeling the bass line in your chest. And you're certainly not hearing a century of sound innovation. The only way to hear this song the way the artist intended is to hear it on a Denton home speaker. A speaker built with as much craft, dedication, and precision as the music it plays. Which means you won't just hear the song, you'll feel it. Denton home wireless speakers, crafted by the sound obsessed, for the sound obsessed.
Welcome to Season 2 of Ruthie's Table 4. I'm Ruthie Rogers, the founder, chef, and now podcaster of the River Cafe in London. In this series, I will be talking with amazing people, hearing their food stories, discussing the role food plays in all their lives. Listen to Ruthie's Table 4 every Tuesday on the iHeart Radio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.